Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, a Kenyan court rules that a police ban on anti-government protests last year was unconstitutional. Thousands were met with a heavy-handed response when they took to the streets to denounce tax hikes and the spiralling cost of living. Also, no need for a vote. A national political conference in Mali recommends naming the junta leader as president for a further 5 years and scrapping political parties and the abolition of the opposition leader. And a Togolese comedian is reeling in TikTok fans with a pretty simple shtick. He's putting his love of spaghetti on the plate for his followers. He seems to have hit the spot as he's already reeled in about 7 million subscribers. But first, a Kenyan court ruled that a police ban on anti-government protests in Nairobi last year was unconstitutional. Judges have ordered that the state pay the 11 plaintiffs who brought the case around 15,000 euros in compensation. Now, thousands of young Kenyans took to the streets in 2024 during demonstrations over tax hikes and the spiraling cost of living. Many rallies were met with a heavy-handed response. Olivia Bizo talks us through.
Kenya's High Court has declared last year's police ban on protests in Nairobi's central business district illegal. And it's ordered the government to pay damages to the 11 protesters who petitioned the case. Each of them has been awarded around 1,500 euros in compensation. Now, this ban in question was issued in June 2024 by the Police Inspector General, just ahead of a planned march. But the court found it violated key rights under Kenya's constitution, including the right to peaceful assembly and protection from arbitrary arrest. The petitioners said they were beaten by police, tear-gassed, sprayed with water cannons, and in some cases even shot at with live ammunition. All of this despite protesting peacefully. They were also arrested without explanation and denied access to legal counsel. The ruling comes nearly a year after nationwide protests erupted over government tax proposals, high inflation, and a worsening economic crisis. Dozens of people were killed in the crackdown of those protests, and human rights groups have accused police of continued arbitrary arrests and abductions of activists.
Well, Sudan's army chiefs named a new acting prime minister. Abdel Fattah al-Burhan made the appointment on Wednesday in a move to assert government control weeks after the army wrested control of Khartoum back from the RSF paramilitary that's on the other side of Sudan's devastating 2-year war. Now, the RSF still controls most of the region of Darfur. And their aid workers say that the RSF's assault on the city of El Fasher has cost at least 165 civilian lives over the last 10 days. Now, El Fasher is the last Darfuri city that the RSF doesn't yet control, and they've been ramping up shelling to make up for their loss in Khartoum. Meanwhile, across the country, World Food Programme workers have been navigating dangerous landscapes, trying to help the hundreds of thousands of people caught up in the violence. They say they're running out of time.
More than 400,000 people have fled from Zamzam camp in recent days. Many have arrived in Tawila, where a WFP convoy of trucks has also arrived with food to assist more than 200,000 people. There are more trucks en route, including to El Fasher itself. And in recent weeks, we've also scaled up assistance in Khartoum, in the capital, in areas which have been inaccessible due to fighting for months. The rainy season is just around the corner, and we're in a race against time to pre-position food in areas that will be cut off when the rains come. During the rains last year, we saw a major surge in hunger and in disease outbreaks.
Well, recommendations from Mali's National Dialogue have suggested allowing the junta leader who took over after coups in 2020 and 2021 to stay in power as president for another half-decade. Now, members of the conference also said that political parties should be dissolved. And all this is a blow for those who had been hoping to see a return to democratic civilian rule for Mali anytime soon. It's not a done deal, though, and our regional correspondent Justice Baidu joins us now with more for a breakdown of what is what. Justice, now, Colonel Goita, he has not said yet that he is on board with the recommendations that he stay in power as president for another 5 years. So what does all this mean, the recommendations, when it comes to what's in store for Mali politically and socially going forward?
What is in store is what really to look forward to over the next 5 years. If you look at Goita's record since 2020, when he first took power, he seems to be someone who is really interested in holding on to the power that he has. If you go back to 2021, he reluctantly gave up to the transitional team that was to return the country to democratic rule, and then immediately took back power himself and has been holding on till right from then. The military junta that he leads has promised and failed several times between 2021 and now that they were going to return the country to democratic rule. Now it looks almost certain, looking at the record that they have, that they are not going to leave any time soon. If you look on the ground, not just in Mali, but across the West African sub-region, opinions are sharply divided on what these military juntas, like the ones that are in Mali, mean for governance generally across the sub-region. There are people who believe that if the countries were returned to democratic rule, they would mean good for governance in Mali and then out of it. There are also those who believe, and that number keeps growing and having a good groundswell, who believe that these leaders are asserting the sovereignty of some of these countries that have now come together to become the alliance of Sahelian states and assert their power or their natural resources against former colonial masters like France and much of the Western world. And so it is really hard to figure out whether this decisions like this enjoys that sort of mass support in Mali or elsewhere in the sub-region, Georgia.
Now, one of the other recommendations from the National Dialogue that has caused a lot of concern amongst rights activists is this suggestion that no need for political parties. Have they given any actual justification for why they think this might be a good idea?
That hasn't been answered yet. The sense that I get from a lot of the dissenting voices on the ground is that this is the government is the military leadership is taking this decision to sort of quell any sort of dissent or any sort of opposition that would stand in their way in implementing some of the hardline decisions that they have started implementing. Much of it is taking the country away from former leaders like France and taking it more towards alliances with countries like Russia.
But
changing
it's not just the relationship with Western states that's being affected by this. How is this likely to affect relationships in the region? You know, Ghana itself, the new Prime Minister, President Mahama, he was charged with trying to bring AES members back into the ECOWAS fold. Is this likely to make that job any easier?
Not at all. In fact, this that had happened now is likely to deal a big blow to efforts by not just President Mahama, but ECOWAS that has been trying to woo these Sahelian states back into the union, because the pushback that has come against efforts by the Ghanaian leadership to bring these countries back into the ECOWAS is being that sort of democratic countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, allowing countries that are now led by military leadership and have taken power through coup d'etats would serve as a motivation for other nations where there's also a groundswell of support for military takeovers. They really do not want the situation where there is that sort of appetite or there's that sort of justification for other countries that may want to go along the lines that Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali has taken. Only last week, there was a new data from the Afrobarometer released from about 2024 that suggested that even in countries like Ghana, up to about more than 50% of people who had been interviewed were happy that the country could be taken over by a military government. It goes to show you, and Ghana is really one of the examples of good democracies across not just West Africa but across Africa. And so if these are the sentiments on the ground in countries like Ghana, it tells you that what the sentiments would be in the several of the other West African countries. And so
Justice, Ghana's a different situation because when that poll was conducted, it was under a different government, and as far as I understand it, there was a lot of frustration with the government prior to John Mahama's currently. But thank you so much, though, for giving us an insight into the implications of those recommendations from Mali's national dialogue, both within the country itself and within the region. Our regional correspondent there, Justice Baidu, giving us a bit of a breakdown from Accra. Finally, though, as we wrap up the bulletin, we turn to Togo, where a comedian is using TikTok to reel in followers with a pretty simple shtick. He's forking them in by sharing his love of spaghetti. And his love for the simple dish has gone to pretty spectacular heights and seems to be going down well with his 7 million followers who keep turning up for regular servings. Take a look.
Arnoli Bukhari, known as Spaghettiman, has captivated online audiences with his unique style, infectious expressions, and an over-the-top love for spaghetti. The Togolese comedian has reached nearly 7 million subscribers. In the streets of Lomé, everyone can't help but laugh when they see him.
Spaghettiman is such a funny guy. We follow him on the apps.
So wonderful and so fantastic.
It makes me happy when people enjoy my videos. I'm not still surprised by the success.
Spaghetti has become a beloved staple in the diets of many West Africans. Bukhari's comedic twist on the dish has also gone down well.
I know that pasta is famous, so I told myself, just imagine if I use it with a little touch of humour. I'd be as popular as spaghetti. I knew in advance that by doing this, I'd be known both in Togo and around the world.
He's not alone. Many young French-speaking African comedians are making waves on social media by tapping into their cultural roots to create unique, made-in-Africa content.
Am I overcomplicating my life? Anyway, good on you, Spaghettiman. That's it, though, for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again. Till then, take care.